Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Ask MCT Chris. In this session, we're going to call a stored procedure passing some parameters into it in Power BI. Stay tuned, but before we start, let's watch my intro. Now let's look at first the stored procedure that we're going to call in our Power BI. This is from the Contoso Retail DW database, and the stored procedure that we're going to call would be USB list of employees which has one parameter, which is the department. And it is just selecting all the fields from the dim employee, filtering it with the parameter department. So I'm now going into my Power BI desktop, and to call that stored procedure, all we need to do is go to the Get Data, go to SQL Server, type in the server name, which is localhost in my case, and then type in the database name, which is Contoso Retail DW. And then expand the advanced options, and in here we're going to call the execute stored procedure, which is exec, and then the name of your stored procedure, which is DBOUSP list of employees, and then passing on the parameter department. And then in this case, we will just statically put in a department, and I'm going to put in production in here. We'll hit the OK button, and then that will fetch the data from our Contoso Retail DW. I'm going to hit the transform data so that we will be redirected to the Power Query Editor. And you can see in the Power Query Editor, if I will just go into the department, it is just listing the employees from the production department. We're going to rename this query to be employees, and we will first create a parameter. To create a parameter, I'm going to right-click and then New Parameter, name the parameter department, and then put the data type, and I'm going to choose the text data type. Let's just put any value, and I will statically put in a value in my parameter, which is production. And then I will hit OK. And that is now our parameter. Now the next thing we need to do is to modify our employees query by going into the advanced editor, and we will now embed in our query the parameter. So we will just modify the static value of production and pass on our parameter that is called department. So I'm just going to pass on in here, concatenate the department parameter, and that's it. And then after doing that, we'll just hit the done, and look at this. This is a permission that is asking us to run native database query against our database on the Contoso. And we need to approve this every time we run a native query so that we won't be able to modify the data back to the database. Now, if you wanted to get rid of this totally, what we can do is we can go into the files and then options and settings and option, and from here we need to untick that native query that we can see it in under the security, and then untick that. But be careful doing that, because every time you run a native query, that might be detrimental to the database because we're going to be able to change something. So the best way to modify this is to go back to the advanced editor and call the value native query and passing on our SQL database, which is the local host, and then going into our data warehouse, which is a Contoso, close bracket, and then we will pass on our query, which is executing the stored procedure of a USB list of employees, and then passing on the parameter department. But when we pass on the parameter department, we need to type it this way. So we will close that and then do a comma in here, and then we need to enclose it in hash and then delete those concatenation that we have, and then just pass on the department parameter, and then we can just close this equal to, and you say department, which is the parameter, and then close square bracket. So that is the entire syntax of using a value native query so that you won't have that edit permission anymore. So I will hit the done. Okay, you still have just one edit permission in there, and then once you run it, that is giving permission to the stored procedure. So let's just double check in here that it is still listing all the production. So after doing that, we will now convert this query to a function by right-clicking it, choose the create function, name your function. I'll call it list of employees, and then I will hit the OK button. And then what we need to do now is I do have an Excel spreadsheet in here that you can put in the parameters that we can pass into that function. In this case, I do have document control and engineering in that department's Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to just create an Excel workbook in here, and then pointing to that department Excel spreadsheet. And then I will have now that sheet, hit the OK button, and I can rename this to departments. And then what we can do now is we can invoke that function by going into the add column, invoke custom function, and then choose the FN list of employees, which will point to that column 1, and then once I hit OK, expand the table, and let's say we will just choose the first name, the last name of the employee, and let's try to get that department name and hit OK. You will see that it is now just getting the document control and the engineering. If I'm going to add into that workbook the word production, okay, save that, and I'm going to refresh this. So just do a refresh. You will see that I've got the production employees in that department. And there you go, calling a stored procedure in Power BI, and we were able to pass also parameters. I hope you learned something from this session. If you did, please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe for more tips and tricks from me. Thank you for watching.